Hello and welcome to the India Hangout. India has a curse of being educated. Recent figures put out by the International Labour Organization say that some 18% of 15 to 24-year-olds in India are unemployed. More importantly, about over 32% of graduates are still looking for jobs, which is that one-third of all graduates in this country are without jobs. Now, these are not unknown figures in the sense, but perhaps we've not revisited them in a while, and which also raises some larger questions about the nature of education and whether we can fix the problems for these young Indians who are coming into the workforce, particularly as they grow older. Joining me to discuss this are two gentlemen, Jai Narayan Vyas, former minister and academician from the Gujarat State Government, and joining us from Ahmedabad, and also Mohandas Pai, chairman of the Manipal Global Foundation, also educationist from Bangalore. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. Mr. Vyas, let me begin with you. This is, not so much of a Gujarat question right now, because I'm going to come to Gujarat questions a little later. In your sense, how have we failed, or rather, why have we failed to tackle the problem or the challenge of educated unemployed?
Well, when I believe that it's not the degree that should be the measure of education. If you feel education empowers a person, and if you are empowered properly to tackle a particular issue or be in a particular field, that's the kind of education which is Sa Vidyaya Vimukta, means the knowledge is one that gives you empowerment. Now, if you have an education which is per se for the sake of degree, and which doesn't ready you for taking a plunge into a particular field, how many of our graduates are readily employable? I think there is lot more that requires to be done in this as far as the system of education and also the faculty teaching these students are concerned. I've been a member of the teaching faculty in management institutions as well as the engineering institutions, and it is a very strange phenomena that people who are teaching there are not practicing. What they teach at times is absolutely and grossly irrelevant, especially in case of engineering. They are not able to keep the pace with the changing trends. I think this is equally true for other fields. So I think there is a need to look at the quality of the faculty that you employ. They're being ready to deliver the knowledge which is relevant, and then we can blame the people who are their students for not being readily employable. So I think there is basically something which needs to be done as far as our whole system of delivering the knowledge or delivering the education is concerned.
So, Mr. Vyas, the larger question now, we have a new government in Delhi, we have a new minister for HRD. This doesn't seem to be the issue. It's all about saying how do we educate more people, how do we, let's say, perhaps improve the outcomes, how do we create more capacity, all of which is fine, but no one is talking about this particular issue, which is that even if you educate people, there may be a problem with the quality of education, and more importantly, they may not get jobs.
You are very right. I think linking again, see, our mentality is education is linked with the job. Look at the service sector, Govind, where today 60% plus GDP comes from the service sector. And if you only relate education with finding a job, I think you are going to be increasingly disappointed, because organized sector, corporate sector, and the government sector job opportunities are not going to increase exponentially the way the educated people are going to be available in the market. So I think there is again a need to accept the thing that self-employment, entrepreneurship, and the kind of capability to get into the service sector is one thing which increasingly the education should be able to provide for or worry about. So I think again there is a change of the total scenario, and the concept also must change. No more government jobs, no more corporate sector jobs, but your ability to apply yourself and find opportunities in this vastly expanding sector is ultimately going to be the reason whether you will be employed appropriately or otherwise.
Okay, so you've raised some issues which seem to be a little soft in the way they perhaps need to be approached, but I'll come to you on that. Mohan, let me come to you. The statement that you are better off being uneducated if you want to be employed rather than educated to be employed. Is that something that we've even come to grips with as policy makers, as people who follow academia or academicians themselves?
Govind, let me say at the outset that the major reason why educated people are unemployed are many, and they don't have to do with the teachers to such an extent. The first reason is they're unable to communicate and to speak. Just call all those people who got a degree and ask them to speak to you. They can't communicate. They can't speak. They can't frame sentences. Now, this is elementary. A human being is supposed to communicate. A human being is supposed to stand up and talk, and these people can't speak. And this can be easily remedied as part of the education process. Second, they must have some domain content, but domain content is easily available on the web and somewhere else, so that is not much of an issue. The third, they must have a problem-solving mindset. And the problem-solving mindset will only come if we ask them to do more of project work in their education system. Right now, the education system is a one-way street. Somebody comes to class, somebody talks, somebody has to write down notes, and you're supposed to vomit it in the examination. So project work should have a higher statement per marks, and children must be encouraged to do more project work. If you look at the American system, there's much more work done by the student to project work than anywhere else, and Americans are possibly much more able to communicate and to talk, whereas our people have possibly more domain knowledge, but they can't talk, and they cannot talk because they're not confident, they're brought up very differently, and this requires small changes to come. And the next thing which is very important for the colleges is very important to have a outside practitioner like industry as someone involved in the curriculum fixation committees. Now, the education has gone away from real life. You know, academics stay in a very different world. UGC and AICTE don't involve people as much from the outside the education system to write about the curriculum, and that needs to be fixed, and there's been a recurring issue, and the recurring issue is not even fixed. The entire move in the last 60 years is towards mediocrity and not towards excellence. Anybody who is going to the excellence is beaten out of shape by all these people because they produce mediocrity, and that is the end result. Now, as far as industry is concerned, let me say one more thing. You have to change the Apprentice Act to make sure that many people can actually work in industry and become apprentices. They don't have the liability to making them permanent for at least 1 or 2 years. We have an Apprentice Act which has only 200,000 people as apprentices. Japan has 5 million, Germany has 3 million. This is ridiculous. For the last 10 years, we've been talking to government, change that. They've not been able to do it. What do you do now? At least industry will take a lot more people, train them up, and the work experience will be fantastic because they'll get the confidence, they get the ability to do everything else. And these are small things to be done. You don't require great reforms, small things to be done, and if you're able to do it, it'll work. And the last point I'll make, Govin, now when you talk about people who are not able to get jobs, who are unemployable, they are people from smaller colleges, rural background, and other places. Because we have made the mistake as a country of saying education should go to students. But students should go to education. In our history, students came to Nalanda. Nalanda didn't go to students. Students came to Taxila. Taxila did not go to students because educational institution can be set up only in certain areas, which requires the infrastructure and the cultural bias. They cannot be all over the place where there is nothing. You can't set up a university in boondocks, and the government of India is doing now, setting up central universities all over the place. It's not going to work because the brand equity of the educational institution rubs up on you. If you go to a small, unknown rural college, because that's the only place you can go and you're poor, if you come out, even if you get the first rank, nobody cares for you, because why will people go and experiment with somebody else? Now, these are structural problems which have to be solved. If you do all these simple steps, you can cut the unemployment rate by half, in my opinion.
Okay, Mr. Vyas, let me come back to you. You know, how are we approaching this issue? Are we seeing it, if at all we are seeing it, as a problem of the education system? Are we seeing it as a problem which is larger that the country has to grapple with? Because if you have so many people who are uneducated, rather educated and unemployed, it obviously will create a strain on the system in coming years.
See, what I believe is education is a tool that permits you or develops your ability to apply yourself. Now, in the present day situation, Alvin Toffler, the way he has said that, you know, every field will be invaded by technology. Those who adapt to it shall prosper. Those who do not shall disappear like dinosaurs. You know, even a common housewife, how many technologies she deals with? So a preliminary capability to have your lifestyle smoothly growing also requires education. But I do agree that this madness of diluting your centers of excellence, that you should have so many IITs, you know, it has become a quantitative target. You should have so many aims. You should have so many IIMs. Now, I think this nonsense must stop somewhere because you don't have the required infrastructure, required qualitative input as far as the faculty is concerned, and then you are creating the institutions which are hitherto known as centers of excellence, you are going to end up creating products which will be far below standard, only have the stamp from these institutions. So I think there is a necessity to look at this whole issue in a little more critical manner. Let it not become a populistic measure of creating so many institutions at so many places. Let us also understand that despite all these institutions, how many of our institutions feature in top 150 universities in the world? China came much later than us, and yet they have now a number of institutions which feature in top 50. So I think somewhere down the way you have to worry about the quality of education, and diluting that quality of education simply because of populistic demand. I think somewhere down the line you have to draw the line between what you are imparting, that kind of education which facilitates your development of mental ability, thinking power, ability to read, write, and communicate, and the ability to have the special knowledge and specialized knowledge and excel in that particular area. I think the present education policy requires a thorough overhaul, and unless we are able to do it, I am afraid no matter what you do will not be able to satisfy the end expectations.
So, Mohan, do you agree? I mean, obviously, this has been debated considerably and on various fora, you know, the whole idea of creating even more centers of excellence or even more IITs and IIMs, while we seem to be not addressing or framing the fundamental question, what are India's youth going to do as they grow up?
Govind, the IIT system is small, is totally irrelevant. Let's get a data right. There are 3 crore young people in our universities all across India. The IIT system, amongst all of them, may have about 50,000 undergrads because they get only maybe 10,000. They got 50,000 posts, get 100,000 people in the IIT system as against 3 crores. Why are you blaming the IIT? We need more IITs. And let me tell you data about IIT, because everybody is making wrong assumptions. You're diluting the brand. They don't have campuses. All the new IITs have got adequate faculty. Faculty is not a problem. Okay, let me make it very clear. I was the board of 2 IITs and I know it being on the board of IITs. As far as infrastructure is concerned, the problem is putting up infrastructure new IITs is because of process, because of CVC, because of CAG, and because of CBI, and the faculty is scared, the directors are scared, they don't want to touch it, they take a long time. And it's going to take a long time in the government system. We set up a university with great infrastructure in Jaipur in 18 months. IITs can do it in 18 months. You know, you can give it to NBCC and they can do it. So all this talk, we don't need more IITs, are totally wrong. I don't agree with it. We need high quality education.
No, Mohan, the question is not whether we need more IITs or not, or whether we can build them or not. The question is, are we losing focus on the real issue, which is what is the future for India's 3 crore Indians, as you talked about, to start with?
Govind, let me come to this question. The big issue is, how do you raise the standards of the next layer? 65% of all the graduates come out of private institutions all over India. 65%. Out of 65%, 30%, that is 50% is of reasonable quality, 30% is of bad quality. The 35% of government institutions, maybe 40% of decent quality, the balance is of bad quality. Now, what we need to do, like China, because Mr. Vyas spoke about China. China has 1,500 universities, all residential, with 25 to 30,000 students in each university. All residential, only so much. We have 670 universities, 46,000 affiliated colleges. We got a wrong model of affiliated colleges which have no money instead of having unitary universities. The model itself is wrong. So how do you improve quality in all of them? It's a Herculean task. The only way to increase quality is to make sure the university system becomes more robust, and the good institutions, which are many, are allowed to expand freely. So in 5 years, the bad institutions die, as is happening in Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, and all the places, and good ones expand. That will solve the problem largely by itself.
Right, Mr. Vyas, let me come to you. You know, the figures, and that's the chart is playing next to you. You know, the ILO estimate says between the age of 15 to 24, obviously employable age is 18 onwards, almost 73 million young people are estimated to be employed in 2013. This is worldwide, but the figure for India is 18% of 15 to 24-year-olds are unemployed. So, you know, the figure seems daunting. And my only question is, who is actually looking at this figure and saying, let's focus on this because this is something that can blow up in our faces?
Govind, let me at the outset clarify that I am not against IITs. Being a postgrad from IIT Mumbai myself, I won't say that I say that IITs should not be set up in more numbers. You can, but go and just I would request the professor to go to IIT Mumbai campus. The state of affairs that you will see the buildings in, the entire open ground which was meant for the games, that has been consumed. They except one building which has come up recently. You find the buildings in dilapidated conditions. You are not able to maintain the property. If this is the state of affairs of one of the oldest IITs of this country, I think let's first consolidate. You know, you are spreading too thin on areas and neglecting your institutions or centers of excellence which have performed. Do it to your delight, but then make sure that they are of standards. The budgetary constraints are not there. They are adequately funded, and they in real sense become the centers of excellence. That is what is my worry. That is not happening, unfortunately. And as far as the employability is concerned, going again, another concern that we'll have to address too, it's not only the employment, it is underemployment as well. You know, I would say that the statistics that we have, how far one can rely upon them for debating this kind of a delicate issue, again itself is a big doubt, because we have dated information, we have statistics which are not so much reliable. But the fact is, yes, you are creating grads and postgrads who are not employed, and who are not employed in the right kind of a job. If a postgraduate commerce graduate with a postgrad degree, if he seeks employment as a talati or a tehsildar, I think he is wrongly employed. He is underemployed. Though the employment records will show that he is employed, he is underemployed. So there are so many issues which I think today's our education. I am not an expert on the education system. On the contrary, I am on the receiving end, that I recruit people and I advise recruitment. But the people who are concerned with the education, they will have to think about it. And sooner than the later, and the government included. I am not trying to say that the government shouldn't do. I mean, the process must begin there. HRD department and the people who are connected with it. There is a time that we start debating that if engineering college, the ideal example which the professor was saying is medical colleges, where a student after graduation has to serve internship compulsory, and that builds him up. When he comes out as a doctor, next day he starts practicing. There are a number of engineers who come out of their engineering colleges. They are unemployable unless they are trained adequately. They might have theoretical knowledge here and there, but totally unemployable. I think we must worry about this situation as well.
Right. Anyway, so Mohan, let me come to you. I think 2 or 3 points. I mean, one is that even those who are quote unquote educated are unemployable, and from your own experience at Infosys and the amount of time and efforts you've spent in retraining, I guess you are testimony to that. The second point is, I'm still not on whether, the second point is of course what Mr. Vyas is saying, which is that even the IITs, if we were to follow or look at the Center of Excellence model, are not being sufficiently looked after for what they are. So therefore, the question of building even more castles and even more in centers of excellence may not be a good idea. I'm coming at it from the same point of view, saying that if we've got fundamental problems to resolve, we've got almost 231 million youngsters between the age of 15 and 25. Actually, it should be more because this is a 2011 figure. We've got something more fundamental and dangerous that we are staring at.
Well, Govind, please remember one thing. There's a rising aspiration among the parents to get their children a college education. You have to fulfill that aspiration. Sure. Everybody wants to get into IIT, NIT and all that. You have to fulfill the aspiration. Aspiration is not going to go away. So you must let them improve. And for that, what you have to do is, there's a lot of money, long-term money available. You see, IITs charge 50,000 rupees and 90,000 fees. A student coming out of IIT gets 7 lakhs, 8 lakhs salary in the first year. Why should they pay such low fees? Make the fees higher. What does it matter? Because they're going to earn it back anyway. Why should we subsidize people who get such a high salary? That's totally wrong. And you are now not saying, I don't have money, but you subsidize people who don't require a subsidy. So you have a wrong policy. And the second thing which is very important is, you talk about money for that. Last 15 years, last 10 years, inadequate money went. Now there's money available. Ask them to go borrow on long term for asset creation and pay over the next 10 years. This whole idea that government should give money and build infrastructure out of current revenues is flawed. Let them borrow long term and pay it over 15 years like the private universities do. Then automatically they can improve their infrastructure. That's not a problem that cannot be solved. And the next thing about having the mismatch of skills between what industry wants. Like Mr. Vyas said, and I agree with him totally, that there has to be large-scale internship. Further, the law has to be changed so that part of the last year of work has to be in internship in industry, and internship can go up tenfold. And that is how, like in the medical school, they're able to produce ready-made doctors. Similarly, for the engineering college, you should be able to produce reasonably good quality or useful engineers. For the internship program has to be done. These are some of the things that have to be done. These are easy things. Government knows about it. Government has to do it, but nobody does anything. That's the tragedy.
Mr. Vyas, let me come to you. I said I would mention figures from Gujarat. Now, the figures that I have, Labour Ministry, now more than a year old, all India unemployment rate 3.8%, Gujarat at 1%. Gujarat, as I can see, if you even compare to smaller states like Daman in the US, amongst the lowest unemployment rates in the state, in the country. Now, the question is, how is this only because the nature of the the young person who comes out is to find self-employment and therefore fend for himself or herself, and the state really doesn't have to worry about it, whereas that may not be the case in the rest of the country?
No, Govind, I won't say that. First of all, you have to accept that decadal growth rate of the GDP in Gujarat has been about 10%. Gujarat is only state in India which would take a decadal growth rate, it is 10.2%. So that is the first thing, that the economy is generally buoyant and growing. And that is the first and beginning point where you start getting a favorable response as far as new employment opportunities are concerned. Something or the else is coming up. Second, Govind, equally, you should not think that Gujarat is growing only because of industry. Gujarat's industrial production was 10,000 crore in 2001. Today it is over 100,000 crore plus. Gujarat produces 10% of the milk produced in the country. So the rural economy also has thrown a lot of employment opportunities, a lot of retail opportunities. There are buyers even in the rural economy. Personal disposable incomes are higher. So there are so many things which are linked with overall economic growth, and then the matching infrastructure that every village in Gujarat, Govind, I'm happy to share with you, is connected to 24-hour power supply. And this has made a change. The professor on the other end will be happy to know that we used to have in the 12th standard earlier a monopoly of urban students who used to capture first 10 positions. Today, out of 10, 5 to 6 students are from the rural areas because they have got better facilities to read and study. So in a way, this is overall empowerment and the holistic development model that has worked in Gujarat, and that's, I think, the reason why you find such a low employment rate. And this is last 7 years. The Ministry of Labour and Employment, Government of India has rated Gujarat as the least unemployed state, unemployment having state in the country. I think these are complex factors, but though they are related with Gujarat, I've tried to mention some of them to you.
Right. Mohan, let me come to you, and let me I think Mr. Vyas has raised the demand side of the issue, and it's only fair that we kind of move to that. Now, how are we looking at this issue from a policy point of view on the demand side, right? So, Mr. Vyas's contention is that Gujarat has shown 10% plus growth. That growth obviously has lifted like a rising tide has lifted all boats, and that has had a corresponding impact on employment, regardless of the fact whether people in Gujarat tend to be more entrepreneurial or tend to drift, or rather tend to move towards self-employment. But this is not the case at a national level. So where do we go from here?
Well, Govind, what he says about Gujarat is the right solution. If you grow at 10%, automatically you have jobs. Our college enrollment is growing at 7.2% a year. If the economy goes at 10%, obviously it will create more jobs than college graduates. Unemployment will be low. And Gujarat is a standing example. Look at UP. What has the economy grown? Look at Bihar. What has it grown? It's grown agriculture. There's not grown enough in industry and services to produce the jobs. So the largest number of unemployed could be in Kerala because nobody goes there anyway. Could be in let's say Madhya Pradesh, or could be in Uttar Pradesh, could be in Bihar, may not be in Gujarat, may not be so high in Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu has done well. May not be high in Karnataka, may not be so high in Maharashtra, especially in the developed areas, maybe in the backward areas. So we need high levels of growth for employment. I think that's very, very necessary. Second, Govind, I've spoken to you about this. In the last decade, jobs have grown at 7% a year all over India. So we need to get our statistics right. And for statistics, you must take the Provident Fund authorities to find out the number of jobs that have been created in the formal sector. Because every person employed with the formal jobs. Now, Government of India releases data from the Department of Employment, and nobody files returns to the Department of Employment since 1991. And they're saying there's been only 0.5% jobs growth every year for the last 10 years, which is totally absurd. They're not taking data. If you take the Provident Fund data, it's grown at 7.2% for the last 10 years. I wrote an article on this. I don't know whether I sent it to you. It's all there. So if you look at actual data, we have today 8.5 crore people in the formal sector, 6.5 crores in the private sector and public sector, and 2 crores in the government all over this country. And every year we're producing possibly about maybe 1 crore jobs in the formal sector through PF and ESI. So if we get this data right and we work with a proper strategy, I think we can reduce the unemployment rate by at least 50% a year. But for that, high growth is essential, Govind. Without high growth, there will be no jobs. Last 3 years have been a washout and a big disaster.
Mr. Vyas, let me come back to you. You know, earlier you alluded to some what I would call softer points. You talked about you know, how do you bring about a situation when there is internship, where there is a sense of preparedness for you know, for the real world, so to speak, or for joining the workforce, and a larger change in attitude towards you know, what is employment, how do you get ready for it from a government point of view. So, you know, this requires you know, some kind of structured approach as well. I mean, while we may have the structured approach for, let's say, setting up schools, setting targets for primary school enrollment or secondary school enrollment, or maybe even later, all of that, but we don't seem to have a target as far as this part is concerned.
Going another thing, I would again tend to agree with whatever was the discussion earlier, is that, you know, you have no participation of the stakeholders. What kind of people they want? Suppose you are having a commerce stream, bankers to the corporate houses. You have absolutely no concern about what is their requirement or what kind of product they are looking for. Even today in engineering colleges, I am shocked to learn that they are teaching some of the useless things like Brunel hardness test, or where you are in the era of non-destructive testing. This is, I mean, basic requirement. You have to consult the stakeholders. You have to take on board these people, and then, you know, if you create a product, I'm sure it will be more employable. I'm not trying to say that 100% unemployment will go away, because unemployment in a way is also state of mind. I don't take a job because maybe my family circumstances don't require me to take a job so immediately, or I have some ideas about a particular job only I want to go in, or I'm preparing for civil services and therefore I'm not willing to get into a kind of a specific job, are some of the minor reasons. I'm not saying they apply to the majority of the segments, but ultimately the stakeholders will have to be taken on board while deciding the curriculum. The curriculum has to have a dynamic status. And third, you have to have at least 50% of the practitioners teaching as a faculty. You know, if you have this, I am sure the product out in the market. See, IIT boys get employment. Why? Because most of their professors are consultants, or IIM boys get the opportunity because most of their professors are consultants, and therefore assisting them, they get on the board experience and knowledge and capability to communicate intelligently and at an appropriate level. Now, unless you are able to do it at all the college levels, the mushrooming of the educational institutions will only throw unemployed or unemployable, I would say rather, the youth, and that will be a problem rather than a solution.
Two solutions. I mean, so obviously one is the demand side, and the other is, of course, on the supply side. See how this the structure of education can be improved, particularly at the point where people are pass out. We're running out of time. Mohan, let me come back to you for a last word. The question we started asking, we started by asking was, is being educated a curse in India? What's your closing answer to that? And if not, why not?
Nowhere in the world is being educated a curse. Education empowers you, and you have 40 to 45 years of working life after you get educated, and education is always a blessing. Let there be no doubt about it anywhere in anybody's mind. Education is always a blessing.
Mr. Vyas?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It is knowledge which empowers. I agree with him that education is never a curse, it is a blessing. But the education which is of no use doesn't result into sa vidyaya vimukta. The education that doesn't empower you is no education.
Education must empower, else it becomes a curse, and we have a fundamental problem in this country, which is that there is a huge amount of youth who are educated but unemployed, and that number doesn't seem to be going down, and that's something obviously policymakers must pay urgent attention to. After all, it's the youth which has played an important role in bringing at least the current government to power. Thank you so much for joining on the India Hangout. We're going to be back.